Today at the National Press Club, the Prime Minister. The Albanese government has started the new year with a shift on tax policy, hoping voters will forgive a broken promise in exchange for broader cost of living relief, and setting up a political battle that could run to the next election. Anthony Albanese with today's address.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the National Press Club in Canberra and the Westpac Address, coming to you from Ngunnawal and Ngambri land. My name is Laura Tingle. I'm the club's president. There's no greater domestic pressure on Australian households or our politicians right now than the cost of living. Equally, the huge cost and nature of the Stage 3 tax cuts legislated in 2019 have meant that they have been a recurrent subject of debate for the last 5 years. Those two themes have now converged and started a new debate set to open the political and parliamentary year, with the government proposing major changes to the tax cuts that are currently due to begin in July. To outline those changes and why the government has chosen to make them, please welcome the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to the podium for his 9th address to the National Press Club.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, and I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I do want to acknowledge the many members of my team who are here today, and thank you for your support and for your presence here. Our Labor government is driven by the determination to make a positive difference, to change this great country for the better, and to build an economy that works for people, not the other way around, so that when you work hard and you make sacrifices, you get fair reward for your effort. You earn the economic security to plan for your future, to pursue your aspirations, to make a good life for yourself and your family. That's at the heart of everything that our government seeks to deliver for the people of Australia. This is why helping with the cost of living remains our #1 priority. Because if the cost of essentials is rising too fast, people hardly have time to think about the future, let alone plan or save for it. I understand that people are under financial pressure. After inflation jumped to 2.1% in the March quarter of 2022, interest rates started to rise. Australians have been living through the economic aftershock of the pandemic, the first recession in 3 decades, and the ongoing, far-reaching consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. An unprecedented combination of global inflation and damaged supply chains has pushed up interest rates, putting pressure on family budgets. Now, everything we have done as a government has been about managing those competing forces, making the responsible decisions to fix the budget, delivering the first surplus in 15 years and a second one a possibility, so that we have a buffer against future uncertainty, so that fiscal policy is working with monetary policy, not against it. And so we have room in the budget to provide more support for Australians, rebuilding our supply chains, fixing workplace shortages, investing in manufacturing, in skills and in energy for the future, and delivering a range of targeted measures, from energy bill relief to increased rental assistance, that provide meaningful help with the cost of living without adding to inflation. That's been the core of our approach, tackling the immediate challenges people are facing while always looking to both anticipate and shape the future, helping Australians here and now in a way that also builds for the long term. And one of the great privileges of serving as Australia's 31st Prime Minister is meeting people for whom our policies are making a real and practical difference. Australians with chronic heart conditions or osteoporosis, saving hundreds of dollars through cheaper medicines. Families in Frankston and Hobart and Rockingham who've been able to get fast and free treatment at one of the 58 urgent care clinics we've opened all around Australia. Young people in regional Queensland or in the northern suburbs of Perth undertaking apprenticeships because of fee-free TAFE. Factories in Ingleburn, Bundaberg and Marrickville that are hiring new workers and investing in new technology because they are backed by a government that believes in a future made in Australia. Australian universities and researchers partnering with local firms to lead the world in everything from cloud computing to critical minerals. Farmers and producers who've been able to diversify and find new markets in India and Southeast Asia and are now exporting to China again as well. Pensioners and small business owners being assisted by our energy bill relief and our new support for rooftop solar in social housing. More than 1 million families have saved money through cheaper childcare, help for their family budget here and now, and an economic reform that delivers not for one but for 2 generations. Boosting productivity and participation by making it easier for parents to return to work and giving more children access to the benefits that come from early education. And of course, it's not just the people you meet. The national economic data tells the same story. Around 650,000 jobs created since we came to government, more than any first-term government in Australian history. Last year is the first year since monthly records began where unemployment stayed below 4% for every single month. The first time ever. And as a Labor Prime Minister, I can't be prouder of anything greater than that achievement. Since 1978, in fact, there have been 22 months when unemployment has had a 4 in front of it. 19 of those 22 have been under this government. Importantly, the latest monthly inflation rate for the 12 months to November fell to 4.3%, the smallest annual increase since January of 2022. And just as we promised Australians, wages are moving again. We have supported back-to-back increases in the minimum wage, and we've delivered an historic 15% pay rise for aged care workers. We've taken the gender pay gap to a record low, and wages are growing at their fastest rate in almost 15 years, including 2 consecutive quarters of real wages growth. Now, all of these are signs that are encouraging. All of them reinforce my optimism about Australia's future. All of them underline my admiration for our people, their perseverance and their positivity, even in tough times. But I do understand that the progress we've made together is not enough. I recognise, as the Treasury analysis confirms, working households have experienced the fastest rise in their cost of living. That's why, over summer, I asked Treasury and Finance to present us with options to help people with their cost of living, whilst importantly continuing the fight against inflation. Australians are looking for more help. Australians deserve more help, and today I can confirm that more help is on the way. Today I announce that from the 1st of July this year, our government will deliver a tax cut for every single Australian taxpayer. All 13.6 million taxpayers, not just some. Everyone who works and who pays tax will benefit. This is a plan for Middle Australia that delivers for every Australian taxpayer right up and down the income ladder, helping with the cost of living, nourishing aspiration and boosting participation, strengthening that connection between hard work and fair reward. Because we want people to earn more and we want them to keep more of what they earn. The first element of our plan reduces the lowest rate of income tax from 19 cents in the dollar down to 16 cents. This change means that taxpayers earning less than $45,000 will now receive a tax cut, and every working Australian will pay less tax on the first $45,000 that they earn. This is a significant boost for the take-home pay of Australians on modest incomes and for the many Australians who work part-time. An early educator or an aged care worker or a cleaner earning $50,000 will receive a tax cut worth over $900 a year. These tax cuts will provide meaningful help for parents returning to work, particularly women with young children. Because one of the things that we know is that when women with children are making decisions about how many hours they will work, an increase in their take-home pay is a powerful incentive. And this is where our broad and fair tax cuts that benefit workers also deliver for business by increasing workforce participation. Today, I also announced we will be increasing the low-income threshold at which the Medicare levy applies. This means 1.2 million low-income earners will either remain exempt from paying the levy or they'll pay less in tax. But it doesn't stop there. Our government understands that middle-income Australians need help with the cost of living now more than ever. And this is why Labor's tax cuts are fairly and squarely focused on middle Australia. The second tax rate will be cut from 32.5% down to 30%. And that will apply all the way up to $135,000. We will be retaining the 37% rate, but that will now apply from $135,000, an increase up from the current position of $120,000. The threshold for the top tax rate of 45% will also be increased. It will now kick in at $190,000, up from $180,000. I note that this is the first increase in the threshold for the top marginal tax rate since 2008, and that others occupied the position for almost a decade and it did not shift one bit. Now, I want to take you through what these changes will deliver for people. The average wage in Australia is $73,000. A person earning that will now get a tax cut of more than $1,500 a year, more than double what they would have got under the plan put forward by Scott Morrison. Consider a full-time worker earning $100,000 a year. They will get a tax cut of over $2,100. Over $800 more for these middle-income earners because of our changes. For a family on the average household income, which is around $130,000, with one partner earning $80,000 and the other $50,000, their combined tax cut will be over $2,600. This is more than $1,600 more than they would have got under the old plan. And someone earning over $190,000, such as politicians, will still get a substantial tax cut of over $4,500. Our plan will more than double the benefit for Australians on the average income, and it will look after low-income earners and part-time workers as well. So someone working at Australia's largest employer, Woolworths, earning $40,000 will now get a tax cut of over $650. Under the Morrison plan, they would have got nothing, not a dollar. And crucially, just like our other measures assisting people with the cost of living, Our tax cuts will not add to inflation. We have taken the unusual step, shouldn't be taken as a precedent, to publicly release the advice from Treasury because it makes it so clear, and I quote, "This option is broadly revenue neutral and will not add to inflationary pressures and will support labour supply." The Treasury Secretary and the Treasurer have both consulted the Governor of the Reserve Bank on our changes, who expects that there are no implications for the RBA's inflation forecasts. As Laura said in her introduction, this is the 9th time I've addressed the National Press Club as Labor leader. Did a few before then, but 9 over that period since I had the great honour. And as leader and as Prime Minister, I've always said I'd be upfront with people and I'd take responsibility for the decisions that my government makes. And I'm doing that today. When economic circumstances change, the right thing to do is to change economic policy. And that's what we are doing. This is a change in our policy. Some would say that we should stay the course, even if we know it means going to the wrong destination. To them, I say we are choosing a better way forward given the changed circumstances. We are doing the right thing for the right reasons, with a plan that delivers a tax cut for every taxpayer, more help for Middle Australia, more help for families under pressure with their cost of living, and a better deal for 5.8 million working women. Every woman taxpayer will get a tax cut and 90% will receive a bigger tax cut under our plan. When Mr Morrison brought his tax plan to the Parliament back in 2019, I said on many occasions that pretending you knew exactly what the economy would look like in 5 years' time was, to quote, a triumph of hope over experience and economic reality. As the Treasury advice that we released today makes clear, the Australian economy, to quote the Treasury, the Australian economy was expected to be supported by a positive global outlook with strong-based global growth. Inflation and therefore interest rates were expected to remain low. However, unanticipated global events meant that these projections have not come to pass. That's from Treasury. Instead, we know, every Australian knows, that we've had to deal with a global pandemic, the first recession in 3 decades, damaged supply chains, conflict in Europe and the Middle East, rapid increases in the price of food and energy, and ongoing worldwide economic uncertainty. And if we were to simply proceed with the old plan, promoted before any of these challenges even existed, it would mean Middle Australia missing out on the help that they need and the help that they deserve. And it would mean leaving out millions of women, part-time workers, young people and renters who more than ever deserve a government that is on their side. For me, our responsibility is clear. This is the right decision, not the easy decision. And just as the health crisis of the pandemic meant that governments had a responsibility to change economic policy through measures such as JobKeeper, the cost of living pressures facing Australians on low and middle incomes demand a better tax policy, a plan that responds to the real challenges that people are facing today. Because when I see the pressure that Australians are under right now, it's crystal clear to me that every taxpayer needs and deserves a meaningful tax cut. And that is precisely what Australians will get from our government. We've seen already that our opponents will revert to their predictable shouting and confected outrage. That's all they do. That's all they've got. You won't get to ask the current leader of the alternative government questions at the National Press Club because he hasn't fronted, not once. It's just all negativity, conflict and division. Nothing positive to offer the Australian people. Now, one quote from yesterday that I did have to check when my team told me to check that it was real, and I have heard it. It sums up why I say that the coalition of yesterday have become the no-alition of today. The Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party actually said, a direct quote, "We will fight this legislation in the Parliament. We don't even know what it will look like." They don't know what it looks like. They don't care who it will help. The only thing they are interested in is having a fight, is the politics. So addicted to saying no that they have already promised to reverse these tax cuts and increase taxes on 11.5 million hard-working Australians if they win the next election. And the word that was used is familiar to me from the last election campaign, from the Deputy Leader when asked. Absolutely was the term that was used. That's how far down the rabbit hole they've gone. They'd rather stage a political brawl than help low and middle income earners. That's why they voted against cheaper medicine and energy bill relief, voted against secure jobs and better pay, voted against Australian manufacturing and voted against more affordable housing, attacked cheaper childcare and talked down fee-free TAFE. But good government is not about looking for fights. It's about finding solutions. And that is the focus of my government, putting people ahead of politics. That's what our government is doing by broadening these tax cuts so they include everyone. A decision inspired by unity and serving the national interest, delivering for everyone. I want Australians to know that we did not choose this course lightly. This is the right decision for the right reasons at the right time. And we've made it the right way through all of our proper processes. It is the best way forward because it's the best way to help Australians struggling with their cost of living without putting pressure on inflation. This plan will boost the family budgets of Middle Australia and boost workforce participation in our economy. These broader and better tax cuts are not the beginning of our actions on cost of living, and they will certainly not be the end. They fit together with everything we're doing to build a stronger economy across the board, balancing the budget, boosting wages, creating jobs, bringing inflation under control and driving fairer prices for Australian consumers. We want people earning more, keeping more of what they earn, but also getting better value for what they spend. I'm pleased that Dr Craig Emerson is leading our review of the Food and Grocery Code of Conduct. And today I announce that the Treasurer will be directing the ACCC to conduct a 12-month price inquiry into the supermarket industry. The ACCC has significant powers, and it is the best and most effective body to investigate supermarket prices, to look at how things like online shopping, loyalty programs and changes in technology are impacting competition in the industry, and to examine the difference between the price paid at the farm gate and the prices that people are paying at the checkout. For me, it's this simple. When farmers are selling their product for less, supermarkets should be charging Australians at the checkout less. Today, I also announced that the government will fund consumer organisation Choice to provide shoppers with a clear understanding of how supermarkets are performing on this score. Because across thousands of products, it can be hard for people to find the best deal. We are backing Choice, renowned for their commitment to consumer fairness, to provide clear and regular information on prices across a basket of goods. This will promote transparency, enhance competition and drive value. These actions send a very clear message. Our government is prepared to take action to make sure that Australians are not paying $1 more than they should for the things that they need. When I stood at this podium on the Wednesday before the 2022 election, I said that I wanted to lead a government that honours the values of the Australian people, that repays hard work, nourishes aspiration and creates opportunity. A government driven by strong and simple principles. No one held back, no one left behind. No one held back, no one left behind. No one left behind speaks to our responsibility to look after the most vulnerable people in our society. That has always been fundamental to the Labor mission, and indeed, I believe is central to the Australian character. That's why our tax cuts deliver for every taxpayer, not just some. No one held back is about aspiration, because that is a fundamental Labor value too, making sure that every Australian is encouraged to aim high, to pursue their dreams and reach their potential, and to get fair reward for the hard work they put in along the way. It's the personal story of so many of my team, including the Treasurer and myself. We get it. That's why the tax cuts we are delivering from the 1st of July go all the way up the income scale. That's why we are addressing the issue of bracket creep with our changes. Middle Australia is the big focus of this plan, and people on low incomes and the highest income earners are included too, because we want all Australians to be able to strive for a promotion or take up an extra shift or a new opportunity without feeling like the system is working against them. And because whether you're earning $50,000 or $90,000 or $190,000 or more, I know that you work hard for it. I recognise that what you do is essential to the strength of our economy and the health of our society. And I want to make sure that your efforts are rewarded. Put simply, our government's definition of aspiration is much bigger and broader than just the highest income level. Our aspiration is inclusive, not exclusive. Because when no one is held back and no one is left behind, everyone is lifted up. That's so much a part of what we celebrate tomorrow around our great nation as we welcome our newest Australian citizens. People who have come here seeking to make a better life for themselves and their children, and in doing so have made us a better nation. Our government's aspiration is for all Australians to have the security and opportunity and confidence to plan for their future. The security of a good job with fair pay in a safe workplace. The opportunity for parents to balance caring and career without being penalised or put off by the cost of childcare. The security of Medicare, knowing that if you get sick, you can see a doctor and afford the medicine that you need. The life-changing power of education, from the early years to school, to TAFE and to university. Something I spoke about on election night, opening those doors of opportunity. That's what education does, giving people the skills and knowledge and self-belief to adapt and succeed in a world being shaped by new technology. The security we gain from investing in our capabilities and investing in our relationships as a nation. Because when Australia is engaged in our region, and stronger in the world, we are safer at home. The opportunity that acting on climate change represents for our economy in new jobs and clean energy, and the security that we must deliver for the next generation by protecting our environment. The security of a roof over your head, the opportunity to buy your first home, the opportunities we can create working with people with disability to reform the NDIS and secure its future, the security and the dignity that superannuation and the pension offers working people in retirement, the security and dignity and peace of mind that comes with decent aged care, looking after older Australians and their families, and the transformative opportunity of equality for women in our economy and our society, closing the gender pay gap, addressing family violence and promoting gender equality in every aspect of Australian life, from the sporting field to the boardroom to our parliaments, is a very strong Labor objective. It all matters. It all fits together. It all drives our government's determination to make a positive difference. On the eve of Australia Day, I am more optimistic about Australia than ever before. If we respond to the challenges before us with hope, with vision, with ambition and determination, we can make this the greatest country on earth, even greater in the future. Located as we are in the fastest growing region of the world in human history, home to extraordinary resources and natural assets, and strengthened by the remarkable diversity and talent, creativity and courage of our greatest asset, the people of Australia. Together, we can build, shape and secure a better future where no one is held back and no one is left behind. Thank you.
Prime Minister, thanks for your address. Every other Prime Minister who's broken a major promise has gone on to lose their job. Paul Keating and his LAW tax cuts, Tony Abbott cutting health and, the ABC, Julia Gillard on the carbon tax, and Kevin Rudd on the CPRS. Why will Anthony Albanese be different?
We're being very upfront with the Australian people that when economic circumstances have changed, it is the responsible thing to do to change our policy. And we are changing our policy for the right reasons, because we can't have it that as Prime Minister of the country, as I travelled around during the summer, and I do much sometimes to the concern of some who have to look after me, go to shopping centres, walk through communities. I don't have just controlled environments. I go out there and I talk with people. And when low and middle income earners are saying that they're under financial pressure, we have a responsibility to do something about it, not just to wring our hands and to say, oh, well, that's difficult, but I can't do anything about it. As Prime Minister, I have a responsibility to act. And that is what we are doing here. We are acting in a way in which we will provide assistance to people without adding to inflation, because that would be counterproductive. So the options before us, I accept. This is not an easy decision to make. The easy option is to kick the can down the road. This is the right decision, done for all the right reasons, and as Prime Minister, I will always do what I believe is in the national interest.
Michelle Grattan has a question.
Michelle Grattan from The Conversation. Prime Minister, can I take you up on this point about not adding to inflation? You quoted the Treasury advice on that, which seemed to be fairly unequivocal. But how is this so, given that the people who will benefit more from the changed tax cuts will be the lower and middle income earners who are likely to spend more of that money than the higher income earners that would have been the beneficiaries under the original stage 3 who were likely to save more than the middle?
Well, the Treasury documents set that out in great detail. And what they say is that, yes, low and middle income earners need this money. That's the point. So they're likely to not put it in the bank. They're likely to buy things that they need. Food, pay rent, provide those essentials. Whether they're low or middle income earners, they're likely to do that. But it's balanced out as Treasury indicates. And this is where this is good economic policy for the nation and particularly good for business. And I note that Innes Willicks is here and other business people. They're struggling to get workers. What this will do is encourage workforce participation and help to deal with labour supply. So that's where Treasury analysis says that that is why it is non-inflationary. It's also very clear that what we did was make sure that we're keeping the same amount effectively. There's a very small increase of $1.3 billion over the forward estimates. There's a little bit less in the first year. But we were really conscious, as we have been with all of our measures, we understand that the fight against inflation is central to everything that we do. And that is why, when we came to what are the options that we have to help low and middle income earners, this was not just the best way by an option. It wasn't a marginal call. This is overwhelmingly the best way that we can do that. That's the advice that we received. And I think it is absolutely right, and that is what has given us the confidence that what we are doing here is the right thing.
Thank you.
Phil Curry has a question.
Thank you, Laura. Prime Minister.
Phil?
In December, you released the mid-year budget update, and it showed the budget was going gangbusters in terms of revenue, largely as a result of bracket creep. The Treasury advice you released about an hour before this speech says as a consequence of the redesign, you're going to rake in an extra $28 billion in revenue over the next 10 years, which I assume is a large proportion is also due to bracket creep. You've reintroduced the 37% bracket, etc. The Treasury advice also says that the inflation should be back within the band within a year, so we should hopefully be through the cost of living crisis. My question is, in a year's time, or not long after, will you again look at tax brackets once the cost of living crisis is over and do something about bracket creep?
We're focused on the here and now, and I make the point, Phil, that this increase in the top marginal tax rate is the first since 2008. I note some of the commentary today. I was looking for that in some of the headlines. But that's just a fact. The previous mob sat there for a decade, didn't do anything about it except to
200,000.
Do something. Well, no. They did something and said in 5 years' time, down the track, we'll do something. They could have had the option. We're saying here, this will be legislated on July 1. And as the quote that I said in my speech today in 2019, it's a triumph of hope over experience in 2019 to say exactly what you thought you knew the economy would look like in 2024, 2025. Now, no one predicted, that I know of, predicted the pandemic. No one, you will recall those famous mugs back in black. Well, we had the largest deficit ever the second largest deficit ever, all produced by the former coalition government. They could have done something. They didn't do something. We're doing these measures. We want to legislate so they come in on July 1.
Claire Armstrong.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Claire Armstrong from the News Corp Metro Mastheads. Today, your Treasurer said that it was over Christmas that it became apparent Stage 3 could be delivered in a better way. In early January, you tasked Treasury with looking into this. So why then last week, when asked on radio if you were committed to delivering the Stage 3 tax cuts as promised, you said, we're committed to that. Do you accept that this was a lie, and why should Australians trust that you won't lie to them again?
What Australians can do is to trust me to make the right call, not the easy call. And that is what I have done. We changed our position on Tuesday in the Cabinet. I'm here at the National Press Club on Thursday with everyone here being accountable for that decision. We made the decision on Tuesday after we went through proper processes of the ERC, which received the Treasury advice. And I've said that over summer, one of the things that I do, and I note in the Daily Telegraph, there's quite a good vox pop today about a working family who are really struggling. And they say they welcome this decision. I say this, that the readers of the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun and the Courier Mail and the Advertiser overwhelmingly will be beneficiaries from what I'm announcing today. And you can't say, we as politicians, we can't say, yeah, we're aware of the cost of living, we're just sorry, but I'm not in a position to do anything about it. I'm the Prime Minister. I am in a position to do something about it. We are doing something about it, and it's the right thing to do.
I'm sorry, but the question wasn't, is this good or bad policy? It's, do you believe you lied? You maybe think...
Well, what I did was absolutely say, I have announced when we have changed our position. We changed our position on Tuesday. I lead a government. I'm only the Prime Minister. I don't have multiple portfolios. I don't have a cabinet committee of one. What I do is we have really proper processes. You know why? Because you get better outcomes. And what you do is you consult your colleagues. We have a proper ERC process. We have proper submissions that are around, not PowerPoint presentations from pollsters. We have proper presentations and submissions gone through with Treasury and Finance. We did that. We did that. We had ERC, then we had Cabinet, then we had full ministry, then I had full caucus. Doing the right thing, making sure that everyone had a chance to have that input. You know why? Because you get better decisions when you involve more people. And we involved the full capacity of my magnificent team in the Cabinet, but we also involved the capacity of the public service that we treat with respect, and received their advice, went through it. And as I've said also, we involved someone else as well, or another group of people, ordinary Aussies in supermarkets. Over December and January, I visited every state and territory in the country. I spoke with people, as I do, in shopping centres, around streets, in shops, in restaurants here in Canberra. I engaged with people, and the consistent message that has been building up over a long period of time is that, yeah, we might get that there's energy price relief and there's childcare, and we get that there are some things that you've done, but we need more. We need more. And this is overwhelmingly the right option.
David Crowe.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks, PM. In your explanation about breaking your promise, you've pointed to a whole bunch of factors: the pandemic, the recession, war in Ukraine, Clearly, there have been some factors that have changed in recent times. There have been 12 interest rate hikes under your government. There's a war in the Middle East. But things like the pandemic, the recession, the war in Ukraine, they were known when you went to the election in May 2022. So when you name those factors as reasons for this change, aren't you just looking for excuses here? Why didn't you level with voters at the election in May 2022?
The pandemic has had a significant aftershock on global supply chains as they came back, on the supply of goods and services, on labour market because of what had happened with migration. Speak to any business in Australia about it's getting better, but restaurants, I know of small business owners who shut because they couldn't get a workforce. The impact of the pandemic didn't end. Of course, people are still getting COVID. We're still dealing with the consequences, but the aftershock has been much greater than what was anticipated. The other thing that wasn't envisaged in 2022, as you know, was that if you can point me to an article saying that the Russian war on Ukraine and the invasion would be ongoing over such a long period of time, that impact on energy prices that then flows through to the logistics industry, to supermarket shelves, was very significant indeed. No one in 2022 at the election, I don't think, was pointing towards those factors at all. So there has been, when we came to office, inflation, of course, the fight against inflation is always an issue. But at the time, of course, inflation peaked. The highest level was 2.1% in March of 2022. And the first of interest rate increases were in the election campaign, as you would recall. You'd recall also the previous RBA governor making a statement about where interest rates would go. No one during that campaign was saying that there would be the number of interest rate increases that would occur. And interest rate increases have an impact on Middle Australia. They're the people working to get ahead who have a mortgage. Some people are doing, okay in Australia. Politicians are doing okay. The people I worry about are people in Middle Australia are struggling to pay the school fees, to pay the mortgage, to pay for the things that they need. And the economic circumstances have changed. We've responded to it. We've responded in so many ways, just as, David, if you had have said in 2022 that we would bring a policy in conjunction with the New South Wales coalition government and the Queensland Labor government to have price caps on coal and gas, I would have said, really? You think we're going to do that? That would be a very bold policy to have. We did it. It was the right thing to do. It was a response to the changed economic circumstances which are there. And good government is about being responsive, is about doing what is necessary, not what is easy. And I want to be known as a Prime Minister who had the ticker to say what was needed and to set about doing it, even as I recognise that this would be controversial.
Even at a cost to your personal integrity then?
No, well, my integrity, I'll tell you what my integrity is. Not looking at low and middle income earners and saying, sorry, I'm just the Prime Minister, I'm not in a position to help you, when I know that I am in a position to help you, and that's what this plan does.
Melissa Clark. Melissa Clark, who I'm sure doesn't have a follow-up question.
Prime Minister, Melissa Clark from ABC. A somewhat related question about the economic circumstances that Treasury outlined and that you have outlined that have underlined this decision to change the Stage 3 tax cuts. Things like inflation, as you've just said to David's question, have been an issue right from the day you became Prime Minister. So have things like the flow-on consequences from the pandemic through the economy. Russia's war has been going on for some time now. You said that you asked Treasury for advice this summer. Given families and many households have been feeling pain from those economic circumstances for more than a year, why have changing stage 3 tax cuts been off the table until this summer?
Well, what we did was a range of measures we introduced in a very clear way. Before last summer, in December, remember the National Cabinet meeting where we adopted it. I had COVID at the time, and we did what was a radical proposal, not one that we envisaged. We will be doing at the election campaign of the two-part policy of the cap on gas and coal, whilst also providing our energy price relief plan. Again, we received proper advice on that. Now, the easy option, and some might argue the political option, and one that our opponents were characterised by, would have been just to send people cheques. What we didn't do was that. What we did was do it in a way that both the RBA and the Australian Bureau of Statistics in their latest iteration, as well as Treasury and Finance have said, put a downward pressure on inflation. So we did that. We did other measures that we had planned for some time, such as cheaper childcare, began on the 1st of July, and there'll be some figures out next week showing that that has been an effective policy with double-digit decrease in costs. We did cheaper medicines. They began on January 1 of this year, and then our 60-day dispensing made a difference as well. In addition to that, we promised 180,000 fee-free TAFE places, and we delivered over 300,000 places last year. So dealing with two issues there. You're dealing with supply chain shortages, but also reducing costs for people. So we had gone through a suite of measures, one by one, constantly, what can we do to make a difference? What became clear, though, is that we needed to do more. And over summer, that became clear to me. I sought advice. I said publicly that I was seeking that advice, of course. We didn't hide the fact that we were seeking advice about what to do. But it's our decision, and we take responsibility for it. But it's the right thing to do to consider how you can make a difference. And it's very clear to us when you have in the order of $107 billion over the forward estimates that are already factored in to the RBA's consideration, factored into the Treasury and Finance analysis, that the right thing to do is what we are doing today. Keeping the amount of the tax cuts that were envisaged, but doing it in a way that helps low and middle income earners, but also helps our economy. This is good economic policy, and good economic policy matters, and that's why we're doing it.
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly with the Australian Prime Minister. Some Labor MPs are concerned about rebuilding trust now with the public following your decision. You promised to do politics differently, to bring integrity, honesty back to politics. Isn't it important, therefore, that you level with the Australian people today and admit that you breached an election commitment? Is that something you can do?
I'm not sure if you were here for the speech, Joe. But
I don't think you've said it was a broken promise yet, Mr Albanese.
But I'm very clear about the fact that we have changed our position. Changed our position. We've changed our position for the right reasons. And I stand by, I accept responsibility for it. It was unanimously adopted by the ERC, unanimously adopted by the Cabinet, unanimously adopted by the Ministry and unanimously adopted by our caucus. We have been through proper processes. That's what I do. That's the sort of government that I lead. A government that is considered, a government that is orderly, a government that is focused on the needs of the Australian people. And what we have done here is put people before politics. We expect there to be some controversy around that. But I have a responsibility to put people first, not to put the politics of this first, and people can do their own analysis and you know, that's fine.
Are you saying there's been no breach?
What I know is that this is the right thing to do. Right thing to do by the people of Australia, both individuals, people on Middle Australia who need that assistance, and you in doing that, we are also in the good position in that this is also good national economic policy to make a difference. And some of the tables that we've released from Treasury today indicate all of that, why it's good for Labor participation, why it's good for business, why it's good for the economy. You know, we had a question before about people on low and middle incomes spending more by comparison with people earning higher incomes. You know where they spend it? They spend it at the local supermarket, at the local shop, at the local things they need for their kids, buying school uniforms, doing all the things that they need.
Anna Henderson.
Anna Henderson, SBS World News. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has clearly stated in recent days that he is against the Palestinian state. As a world leader, do you call that out, or is it time for the government to look at the reality of the situation and look at whether it's now time to drop the two-state solution policy? Is there an alternative? And is it possible, in your view, that Palestinian people could live in Israel with equal rights as thousands of Arabs do?
I support a two-state solution. One of them's called Israel and one of them's called Palestine. And that is in the interests of both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and security, both. What we've seen after the terrorist act on October 7 by Hamas is a tragic loss of life of Israelis, but we've also seen a tragic loss of life of Palestinians. I value every life equally, every innocent life. Israel must be allowed to exist within secure borders, but the Palestinians need justice as well, and I support the efforts of President Biden. I have had discussions, obviously, with President Biden. I refer you to the joint statement that I made with Prime Minister Trudeau and the new Prime Minister of New Zealand as well, 3 of the Five Eyes countries. We have taken, again, not an easy decision on this. We have been consistent, and it's consistent as well, it might be said, with the resolution of the House of Representatives that I moved that was supported by both the major parties.
But your reaction to Benjamin Netanyahu?
I've made my...
I'd really ask my colleagues to stop having a conversation and just ask a question, please. Thanks, Mark.
I have one question, Mr Albanese. Mark Riley from the Seven Network. Just on the standard that you've applied today and you say is accepted by your Cabinet on this change, that when circumstances change, then the right thing to do, and I think you said the responsible thing to do, is to change policy. Well, Prime Minister, circumstances change daily. Can you name any of your election promises you are not now prepared to break?
Well, if you have a look, Mark, at what my government has done, we went to an election promising cheaper childcare, we've legislated for it. Went to an election promising the Housing Australia Future Fund, we've legislated for it. Went to the election saying that we'd have a 43% target by 2030 for emissions reduction and net zero, that we would legislate, and we'd do it. That we'd do it through the safeguard mechanism, and we've legislated it. That we'd have a national reconstruction fund, and we've legislated it. Right across the board, whether it be economic policy, the various social policy mechanisms that we've put forward, or environmental policy, we have been very much focused on making sure that we focused on making a difference as we said we would. What's happened with this policy, this is a change in position. I am not trying to argue that it is not a change of position, as we have kept as much consistency as possible by keeping the same amount there, but done it in a way that recognises the reality which is there, so that those people listening to Channel 7 News, just to give you a free ad, on TV tonight and every other night, who are sitting at home thinking that, you know, they're doing it difficult, whether they be low-income earners or middle-income earners, or indeed even high-income earners who'll get a $4,500 tax cut, know that this policy that we are announcing, but very much focused on Middle Australia, where overwhelmingly there is higher benefit, with double the benefit for people in that, around the average tax, the average income bracket, that they've got a government that's prepared to provide assistance when it's needed, and it is needed right now.
Olivia Casey.
Thanks, Prime Minister, for your speech. You told Australians time and time again that there'd be no changes to the Stage 3 tax cuts, despite privately doing the exact opposite. So I ask you today, will you rule out bringing in a retirees tax or any changes to negative gearing?
Look, we have, I'm not sure what you're referring to with the first one.
Well, you said the Stage 3 tax cuts would go ahead as planned.
No, you said retirees or something.
Yes. So will there be, can you guarantee there'll be no changes to further tax concessions, whether that be negative gearing?
What we have done here, and the only consideration that we have had here, is cost of living pressures. None of the things that you refer to go anywhere near any of that. So the only consideration that we have had, and it's been a focus of my government, is how do we deal with cost of living pressures? That is what we have been focused on. The tax cuts that we've announced today will go to providing support for cost of living measures. So it's been the number one focus of my government, has been cost of living, whether it be childcare, medicines, energy, TAFE and education, whether it be all of those measures. And we found ourselves in a position where this was overwhelmingly the case as it was put. You know, and we didn't, were circumstances different, then it certainly was not. We didn't well in advance say, oh, well, we're going to change things, because what we were doing, though, in recent times, just over summer, very recent time, as I said, we changed the position on Tuesday, because the cost of living pressures has lasted for much longer than people thought, and the range of measures that we put in place have not been effective.
Charles Croucher.
As effective enough, yeah.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We've had a bit about promises of the past. I might try for one for the future, if we can. This package will have to go through the Parliament. The opposition are outside unseen, which means you need the Greens. They say they want more. Can you then guarantee that this is the package that will get to and through the Parliament and there won't be other changes of heart?
Well, this is the package that we'll put to the Parliament, and we're confident that it'll be carried by the Parliament because people will have the option now of two plans. One plan that the coalition say they're not, before they've even looked at our plan, they're saying no. But they also say that they will legislate to reverse it if they're elected. We think that this is the right thing to do. It's a considered proposal, and I'm sure that there will be some who will say does too much or doesn't do enough. We think this is the right thing to do. And as I said, we have changed our view on income tax, and we're explaining our reasons why. And this is the best proposal. It's backed by the Treasury analysis that we've put out. It won't be inflationary. It will make a difference for Australians overwhelmingly. Everyone will get a tax cut. 84% of Australians will get more than under the Morrison plan. And we're particularly focused on the beneficiaries will be those in those middle income brackets who need that assistance. So we'll argue our case. That's what I'm doing here today, and I'm confident that we'll be able to get it carried in the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Chloe Boris.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Some public reaction we've got so far this morning from middle income earners is that they're happy, they want more money, but at the same time it has planted a seed of doubt as to whether they can trust you on anything you say going forward. So do you acknowledge that middle income earners may forgive a broken promise but may not forget?
Australians, including middle income earners, can trust me to do the right thing for all the right reasons. That's what we're focused on. I've said before and I repeat, this isn't the easy decision, it's the right decision, and we stand by it.
The last question, I'm afraid, will have to be Ben Westcott.
Thank you very much for your speech, Prime Minister. Ben Westcott from Bloomberg. You've said today that the changes to the Stage 3 tax cuts won't worsen the inflation outlook, and that appears to be backed up by the advice you've provided from the Treasury and from the RBA. But we're still not seeing that inflation come back within the target range probably until 2025. Was there any alternatives to the version of the Stage 3 tax cuts you've offered today that could have seen bigger cuts to that policy to bring inflation under control sooner?
Well, we were determined to have the same level of tax cuts. We thought was the right policy. And we thought, the reason why we thought that was because of the problem that we were trying to solve. The problem was pressure on cost of living for low and middle income earners in particular, for middle Australia. The solution is what we came up with. So we were very clear, and we ensured that the analysis was done as well by Treasury that we've released for you. We made sure that the Treasurer, as well as the Treasury Secretary, consulted the head of the Reserve Bank ahead of us making that decision, because we understand that inflation doesn't have the same impact on people, on Australians. Inflation has a greater impact the less you earn. That's the truth. And that's why this response has been fashioned the way that it has, to make a difference to those low and middle income Australians.
Because Paul Karp's going to ask a very succinct question, I'll let him.
This policy, thank you for your speech. This policy gives more for every taxpayer, but not every Australian. Will there be anything for working Australians below the tax-free threshold and income support recipients in the further cost of living relief that you flagged today?
Well, I do note that the last Labor government tripled the tax-free threshold, something that we were very proud of. We very much focused on providing support for that. The right thing to do was to reduce that rate from 19 cents to 16 cents, because that was a change as well that flows through to everyone, including those earning $45,000. That's a factor that reduces everyone's tax that they're paying. So we thought that was very positive. I note that in the other measures that we've been doing on cost of living, many of those have been targeted at people outside the tax system. Our increased rental assistance, our support for single mums, our increases in payments to welfare recipients have all made a difference. But what we did with this package is unashamedly come at it of how do we assist people in that middle income bracket? How do we assist those people? Because you don't assist those through the social security system, right? And we've done a range of things through the social security system in our first two budgets. So this was about how do we help working families. That's what it was about, working families, particularly middle income working families. And that is what this does by doubling the benefit for them, which will make a difference. In addition to that, of course, lower income workers, including part-time workers, will benefit from the change, the drop from 19 to 16 cents. And that's something that will drive as well, will be a real factor for people, mums and dads, deciding how they'll go back into the workforce for 2 or 3 days. It will be a real encouragement for them. And that's why the impact on labour supply is seen to be so positive. And that's why the impact of these changes as well. We also released today the gender impact statement. This very much, the previous package was very much skewed in terms of benefit towards men, overwhelmingly benefited. So as a result of this, 90% of women will receive a greater benefit. But I make this point, and I'll conclude with this, Laura, if I get away with it. Every Australian will receive a tax cut as a result of what we will do. That is why I go back to the speech, no one left behind, no one held back. This is about not forgetting people who really need that assistance, and we've provided a lot. Cheaper medicines has cost, for example, $250 million to the budget as a result of what we have done on cheaper medicines. Is the benefit for Australians overwhelmingly on low incomes. That's why we focused with this on not holding people back. This is a pro-aspiration package by providing all the benefits focused on Middle Australia, but also by making sure that we've increased that top rate as well, so that we didn't try to look after just one section. We've tried to look after the whole nation, but particularly with that focus on Middle Australia.
Please thank the Prime Minister. We need another one of these, I think.